Hi guys, welcome to another episode. Today we're going to work on developing your own study method. Developing our own study method is fundamental for whatever we are doing really, but especially for when we practice and play drums. Sometimes we want to improve ourselves and we don't really know where to go, where we should start from, and what steps should we follow. But other than that, we also don't know how to work on every single subject that we want to work on. So today we will understand a little bit how our brain works in order that when then we play drums and we have to face certain steps and certain things, we know how to work on them because we know how we have to work on ourselves, on our arms, our legs, our fingers, wrists, ankles, but mostly important on our brain. So talking about our brain, I think it's clear for everybody that we only have one brain, but that when we play drums we have to control at least 4 things at times. That means that our right, left hand and right and left foot are doing most of the times different things at the same time. So we will have to educate our brain in order to have muscular memories so that we don't have to think of 4 things at the same times, but we can focus on at least having 2 things that are going automatically, and then other 2 that are that we can think of that are working. Like for example, we keep the hi-hat with the left foot and the right hand on the right, and we create phrasing with our right leg and left hand. Okay, so 2 things are going automatically and other 2 are we're working on it with our brain. So this is just an example. How do we do that? How does our brain work? Basically, our brain works based on the experience that every human being has. So when we are children, we're very young, we have no experience. We're playing with a volleyball with our dad or our friend, and the ball comes towards us, hits us in the face. We feel pain, we cry, and our brain memorizes that. Our brain memorizes that whenever something is coming towards us that will hit us, that will hurt, and it's a bad experience. So the next time that that will happen, your brain will instinctively have your hands in front of your face or the part that it's gonna be hit, so that it prevents the bad experience that it had last time. So in this way we will protect ourselves and we won't get hurt, and the brain will understand that it found a solution. So every time that something will come towards us, the brain will put our hands in front of it so that it protects us. And we don't have to practice that, or we don't have to remember that or think about that whenever this situation happens. It just instinctively happens because our brain will create some contacts between the brain cells that will send the inputs to the hands that will say, hey, something is coming towards us, let's protect ourselves. Okay, so it creates muscular memories based on that situation that you lived. Same things happens when we play the drums. Okay, so first time we sit on the drums, we have to deal with the pedal. The easier thing for our brain to do is to use the leg motion because it's a bigger muscle, so it's usually has a stronger connection with our brain rather than a smaller muscle, like for example the one of the ankle. And so that becomes the habit. Every time it will sit on the drums, your brain will automatically use that part of your leg to do this motion because that's the contact that it created in our brain. So applying this to improving ourselves, improving every single part of our body, means that we really have to be concentrated on one thing at a time. to create all these contacts for every single part of our body. I know it sounds like a very long process. It really is hard at the beginning, because we will do a bunch of things that in a way that we never did, but that's also the thing that will make us understand that we're improving something, that our brain has no connection on all these new things that we're doing and is building connection, and that means that we are improving ourselves. Let's think about the fact that our hands and feet don't have their own brain. We will have to educate our only brain that we have to send the right inputs to all the parts of our hands. So we have to learn how to play arm motion so that your brain gets the education of what an arm motion exactly is. Then we have to isolate and make sure we can use only the wrist, so a wrist motion, so that our brain is educated to, we will think of wrist motion, and he'll know what he has to do. And then finger motion, so it isolates completely the wrist. So when we have a halfway motion, so for example a little bit of finger and a little bit of wrist motion, that means that our brain doesn't exactly know which part it has to activate when we want to do certain things. So everybody, of course, is different and will be more comfortable practicing in certain ways, but there is something in common with everybody, which is how our body and brain works. So all the things that we just talked about. So the best way and the key word of practicing and educating the brain is concentration. We have to concentrate on every part of our body to educate our brain to control them. So, for example, when a common mistake that I used to do and I see different people doing is that when we want to improve speed, we'll just sit on our stool, put a click BPM, and then we'll start warm up, then increase the speed, then increase the speed, and go as fast as possible. What is happening here really for our brain is that he is applying what he already knows, because he can't concentrate on anything, he can't think about anything, because doing this is too fast. Okay, so he can concentrate on up down motion with alternating right and left. So right left, right left, right. This is too fast. Okay, we can't think about this motion. So this means, and even at this speed, okay, right left, right left, right left, it's already too fast for your brain to really concentrate on anything and to improve anything. So instead, if we get rid of some messages to our brain and we start focusing only on one part of our body, and on this part we start focusing only on and of this limb we'll start working only on one part of the limb, so for example the fingers, and then while we're working on the fingers we start to concentrate on each finger, for example the thumb, and I make sure that the thumb is in the right way, then the index finger, and I make sure that the index finger is in the right position, and middle finger, ring finger, pinky finger, and so on, and then wrist, and then arm. Okay, so we break down really every part so that our brain understands that what it has to do, what every part of our body should do when we activate them. Okay, so what is the best way to, for example, work on hands speed? Is to start working on one limb at a time. Okay, and a suggestion that I give you is to start working on your stronger limb. So if you're right-handed, on your right, and if you're left-handed, on your left, because that's going to be a little bit closer to the final result that we want to achieve compared to our weak limb, and so it will become even a better instructor for your weak part. the weak part of your body, and I will explain this better in a little bit. So I'm right-handed, and so I will start working on my, let's say, wrist motion, or actually finger motion with my right hand. I will start focusing on each part of my hand, so each finger, and make sure that I only focus and concentrate on one part at a time. Then I will go on my weak part of the body, so the left hand, and I will do the same. And for example, here I will start using 3 different senses of my body, which is very important also to put this in our study method. So for example, I can see how my hand is working, I can listen to the sound, and I can feel. So I can close my eyes and just feel the feeling that I'm having while I do this motion. And then I try to copy the same thing. I try to watch, look at my hand, and understand the positions, if there's anything different, then the sound, and then the feeling. So I'll close my eyes, and I'll compare the 2 hands. Okay, so first part is 1 limb at a time, focusing on every part, so breaking down every part of the hand that I'm using, or part of the body that I'm using different senses of the body. And so this is working on one thing, but we're working on it in 100 different ways. Then we can play unison. When we play unison, what happens is that we're sending the exact same message at the exact same time from 2 different parts of the body. So our brain will understand that there's one part of our body that's doing all this motion in an easier way compared to the other one. So our weak part of the body is going to have harder times compared to our stronger part. And so the brain understands this, and the strong part starts to become a guide, a leader for the weak part. So we will feel that the left part, in my case, I will feel that my left hand is going to start working a little bit better because it follows the right hand. If we, for example, we do this kind of motion, like the Muller 2-stroke Muller motion, and then we get rid of the right hand, you will feel that the left hand has hard times going on its own, and it's a little bit easier when it works unison, because it follows, okay, the hands that is leading the workout. So the unison part is very helpful to kind of auto-educating ourselves. Okay, our brain will understand, hey, your right hand is doing a better job than your left hand, so the left hand starts follow and starts copying the right hand. Then the third part, it's going to be alternating, which is really an application of what we are practicing. Okay, so here we work on the single parts, and we work on kind of leveling with the unison section. We kind of level the 2 limbs, and then we apply. So let's say that we go from 3 out of 10 to 5 out of 10 with our right hand practicing on its own. Same thing on the left hand. Then we go from 5 to 6 when we start practicing unison, and so from 3 we go to 6 out of 10. So our application will automatically go from from a performance of 3 to a performance of 6, because we've improved every single part. Okay. And so our application will also have benefits from here. So in this way, we're really educating our brain to control our body, and to then really know whatever is happening. Okay, so both from in our body and controlling the external forces, so the rebound, the spring, and everything that we have to deal with while we play. Of course, it's not something that you can apply when, for example, you have to practice a groove, because in that case, like for example the unison part, unless there are certain like the backbeat that goes unison with the hi-hat or stuff like that, but you can still think, or now that you know that how our brain works, you can still figure out a way to practice it. So you can figure out a way of, for example, starting with your right hand on the hi-hat, if that's the case of the groove, and make sure that that works, and then you can add the second hand, and so you make sure that nothing changes, and so you kind of break the groove down and you concentrate on everything. So we won't have to do this for every exercise that, or every groove that we will work on, but it's just something that once you know how your brain works and you have hard times doing something, you know what's happening. You know that your brain doesn't know which control it should have or it should give to that part of the body, and so you can work on that. This also happens, for example, another common thing is when our foot starts to do weird motions, that it does like spasm kind of motions, like that it's just going instinctively and you have no control over it. That's because your brain is not completely educated on using only the ankles, so you will have to just work on the ankle motion first and then apply it to the pedal and then speed it up. So break down everything. Every time you have any problem and you're facing something that's blocking you, you will have to stop, understand what it is, understand what your brain is missing, what message your brain hasn't learned yet, work on that, educate that, and then go back and apply it. And in this way you will solve all the problems that you have for coordination, technique, taking advantage of external forces, controlling your body, controlling your instrument. So now we understand how important concentration is, and this will help us to make the best out of every minute that we spend practicing. And this will also help us to motivate ourselves to practice more. We will have results, and it will make our study course way easier. And motivation and concentration are a big thing in the daily journey to achieve your goals. So now that you know how our brain works, hopefully it'll be easier for you to practice anything that you're doing.